Hey MX5 fans, today we're going to show you how to upgrade your engine mounts.
Welcome to the driveway.
Alright guys, so before we get into the how-to, we'll just quickly talk about why you would replace your engine mounts. If your engine mounts are worn or damaged in any way, it actually leads to the engine twisting more under load. This puts pressure on your other systems, such as cooling, where it can actually break pipes and other things like that. Also puts a bit more effort on your gearbox and the engine itself.
Today we're going to be upgrading to the master speed mounts, which are quite stiffer compared to the OEM. Now this will help transfer more power to the wheels, however you will feel some more vibrations and a bit more noise in the cabin. So that's a trade-off that you'll have to make up yourself. Alright guys, in case you don't know what the engine mounts look like, we've got one here from a previous car that we've worked on. So they sit pretty much like this in the engine bay. The engine will sit hard up against this panel here. So the first step is removing this bolt, like so, which will allow the engine to move separate to the car, and then once it's up, we undo these three bolts here, and then the mount should easily come out. Now before you get started, you want to get the car up on jack stands and take off the front wheels. This will give you a lot more space to get to those engine mounts. The first nut you want to undo on the driver's side is this one here. It's a 14mm nut and you'll be able to get to it with a couple extensions. And then you've got this nut on the passenger side in pretty much the same position.
Now, an important note about jacking up the engine. Under no circumstances would you normally jack up the engine from the sump. However, with these two bolts removed, the engine will now move separately to the car, which means it's okay to jack it from the sump as long as you have a piece of protective wood here. You want a piece of wood that fits just equally across the front here like this, and we're going to position our jack underneath it and very carefully jack it up from here. A lot of people will tell you to jack from the transmission bell housing, which you can do if you prefer, but it's a bit of overkill in our opinion. Alright guys, so the other important thing to consider while jacking up your engine is that you want to go really slow and only do a little bit at a time, because if you go too hard, your crank angle sensor and your ignition coils can actually hit on the back of your firewall. So the ideal solution is to have two people, one person jacking, another person keeping an eye on those important components. If you happen to be stuck doing this job on your own, don't worry, it's still doable, but just jack up a little bit at a time, come out, double check that you're not hitting anything. Alright, so for this first stage, all you want to do is take the weight of the engine, so you want to jack it up about 10mm. Once those three bolts are out, it's time to remove the entire assembly from the car. We found it easiest to rotate it forwards, drop it over the control arm and then out of the bottom of the car. Keep in mind, if your car is fitted with air conditioning or power steering, there may be additional components you need to work around. But please keep in mind, you can always jack up the engine a little bit more to give yourself more room to work with. Just remember that crank angle sensor and ignition coils at the back firewall. Alright guys, so once you've got all your bolts undone, you're going to be left with this unit here like we showed you earlier. This is the one we've actually pulled out of this car. You can see it's caked in dirt, so it's a good opportunity to clean all your mounts and shields and everything as well. So this shield will obviously come off, and what you want to do is undo this bolt on the inside of the mounting plate, and then you can change your actual mount.
Alright guys, so I've got the mount on the bracket using this nut here. With the plate, you want to make sure that these two holes are at the bottom because they're for drainage, and you'll also find that the mount actually locks in using these two rubber bits here.
Alright guys, so once your bolts are all done up on the engine side of that mount, we're going to move on to the other side. In our case, right-hand drive car, it's a passenger side. Now this side is a little bit tougher to do because you'd have to deal with the exhaust flange. Now for that particular bolt, which is the rear bolt, use a ring spanner or an open-ended spanner, whichever one you prefer. Other than that, the process is almost identical, so to keep this video short, we're not going to show you the full side.
Alright guys, we just changed over the passenger side engine mount. What we found was pretty shocking. This mount had completely split in two. It's 25 years old, so it's a good example of extreme engine mount failure, and it's a good reason why you should change them when you can. So now that that's done, we're going to lower the engine and then tighten up those two nuts at the bottom, and we should be good to go.
Once the engine's all the way down, don't forget to tighten your bottom nuts.
Alright guys, now that we're done, the car's ready to drive. It's a good idea to get the car back up on some jack stands in a few days and re-tighten those bolts at the bottom, just so the engine has time to settle.
Thanks for watching guys, please remember to like and subscribe, and please let us know if you have any video requests. We'd love to hear what you want to see.